Okay, trying something a little bit different here with the blog. Doing it video style because just felt like doing something different. But we haven't updated in a couple of days, and this was my opportunity to just kind of empty my brain, so to speak. We're doing this from the friendly confines of Casa de Mike, so enjoy the NASCAR memorabilia behind me. First off, All-Star Game. Major League Baseball All-Star Game. National League just routs the American League 8-zip. 5-run first inning, 5 runs coming off Justin Verlander. It doesn't mean that much to me. I had a great conversation with my boss yesterday, and he asked me, he says, "Do you really care about the All-Star Game?" And it was an interesting point because it reminded me that when I was a kid, the All-Star Game meant everything. Watching my guys from my favorite team play the bums from the other league. But that doesn't happen anymore. Interleague play has basically rendered the All-Star Game null and void. And, sure, interest is waning in All-Star games per se. When you look at changing the Pro Bowl, obviously we saw a very thin effort on both sides in the Pro Bowl, which is a different animal altogether. I get that. But Commissioner Seelig trying to make the All-Star Game meaningful by having the winning side earn home field advantage for that league in the upcoming World Series. It took an exhibition. It took the beautiful Midsummer Classic of the national pastime, and it just made it into something it doesn't need to be. But that being said, unless my team, my White Sox, do something silly in the in the playoffs, or make the playoffs and find their way to the World Series, well, then I'm a little upset about the way things happened on Tuesday night. But overall, the way I look at it is this: is that baseball has to get rid of interleague play in order for the All-Star Game to have any sort of meaning. It's not going to happen because, like in everything, it's a money grab. But the All-Star Game doesn't really serve a purpose anymore, and it's sad because growing up, it was always. I remember watching the All-Star Game being played at the old Comiskey Park, and I watched it on TV. And if I'm not mistaken, it was the night that Fred Lynn hit a homer to win it for the American League. And I was a young, impressionable, and idiotic Cubs fan at the time. I've grown up since. But that hurt. That hurt me as a kid playing baseball and as a Cub fan, a fan of the National League. That hurt. Because it was like my guys lost. But that doesn't happen anymore. So as a result of where we are in baseball, interleague play has ruined the All-Star Game. Interleague play has really not helped Major League Baseball. It helped it at first. It was a nice gimmick, but it's time for it to go away. And the All-Star Game itself probably needs to be just put back to where it was, an exhibition where the best players get together and they play and they try to thrill the fans. There's no question that baseball has lost touch with I think, kids around the country. There's not a lot of kids that were, when I was 10, 11, 12, there were tons of kids playing baseball. That's not the case anymore. And so baseball could use a little infusion of youth. NASCAR, lots of stuff going on in NASCAR. You had Tony Stewart docked 6 points, and Stewart-Haas Racing coming right out and saying, yep, we're guilty, we did it, didn't mean anything by it, didn't try to gain an advantage, and really, I don't know what advantage could be gained from having an open air hose inside the cockpit of the car. All you're doing is bringing in more air. That could, I guess, slow the thing down. I don't know. But they owned up to it. They said, hey, it's our fault. We screwed up. We're not going to appeal. They lose 6 points, drop it to a tie with Kevin Harvick now in the overall standings. They're going to make the chase, not a big deal. Worse news for Stewart-Haas Racing yesterday was the fact that the U.S. Army decided that they are not going to continue to sponsor Ryan Newman's 39 Chevrolet under the SHR banner because they're reallocating their marketing funds. They won't have a NASCAR presence. Now, they didn't say if that means anything for NHRA and Tony Schumacher because he drives that top fuel beast. Haven't heard anything from National Guard yet in regards to Dale Earnhardt Jr., but you start seeing big-time sponsors pulling out of NASCAR for whatever reason, and you get people that are jittery. Stewart-Haas is going to be fine. Let's be honest here. Stewart-Haas Racing continues to land sponsors. They've got a solid owner who's marketable and he's outstanding on the track. And you look at them in their future, and I don't think there's anything really much to worry about. Bigger issue for Stewart-Haas is if they're going to lose Ryan Newman at the end of the year if he jumps to Joe Gibbs Racing. Doesn't look like it. Looks like Matt Kenseth's going to get that ride over at JGR, whether it's a fourth team or Joey Logano's ride. Still a lot. I mean, it's this early season. Anything can happen. And we just kind of bide our time and wait. Biggest thing going on in NASCAR on Tuesday, though, was A.J. Allmendinger breaking his silence, saying that he would never knowingly take a drug. He failed the drug test at Kentucky, and NASCAR pulled him from his ride prior to the Daytona race on Saturday, the Coke 0400. And as a result of that, Sam Hornish jumped into that car. He'll be back in the car this weekend at New Hampshire. And really, when you look at A.J. Allmendinger, unless you and I don't claim to know him. I don't know him personally. We don't hang out. We don't chit chat. But the persona that I get from A.J. Allmendinger is that I believe him. I believe that the drug test came back positive, but I don't believe it came back positive because he was out doing a recreational drug. I believe him. I have no reason not to believe him. He's never shown that he was that kind of a guy, or never shown that he was that kind of a person that would be reckless, I guess, with his life. I mean, you look at, well, he's a race car driver, I say that, but I mean, he doesn't seem like a guy who makes poor choices. Let's just put it that way. I could be wrong. This is just a read I have on him. I believe him. I think that whatever came back as the positive test is something that was is something that was overlooked. I will be shocked if it's a recreational drug. I will be shocked if it's alcohol related. I'll be shocked, because, like I say, he's got that public persona that he's a good guy, and that's how he comes across. So I'm hoping for his sake, because this has been the opportunity of a lifetime for him to get back into a big time ride, to be racing for Roger Penske. And I agree. I don't think he would do anything to jeopardize that, knowingly jeopardize that. We'll have to wait and see. His B sample went out and was tested. He apologized to his team. He apologized to his sponsors. And as a result of all that, now we just kind of sit and wait. Sam Hornish, hey, he's fine with it, because he was going to run the Nationwide Series race at New Hampshire. He just sticks around an extra day, and now he'll run the Cup race this week. And then I believe the series has next weekend off before going to Indianapolis. And a lot of things will get sorted out for Allmendinger in that time. So you got that going. You got the Bobcats. Whoa. Bobcats are going on Vegas, and they're playing Summer League. Going to start playing Summer League on Friday. No movement yet from the old Kitty Cats, but they could officially start signing free agents at 12:01 Wednesday morning. Haven't done that yet. At least they've told us about it. It's early, but they're in the market for Antoine Jameson. Jameson still has some decisions to make. He's leaving the country today to go on vacation, get out of town, that sort of thing. There are still lots of holes for the Bobcats to fill. Let's be honest. They've got a lot of issues to deal with. They've got a lot of spots where they could use the help. I think they drafted well. I think Michael Kidd Gilchrist, easy for me to say, was a good pick. I think Jeffrey Taylor is going to be a nice complementary player, but the Bobcats lack star power. They lack that, and it's funny to think that the team is owned by arguably the biggest star to ever play in the NBA. All due respect to guys like Magic Johnson or Larry Bird, MJ was bigger. Flat out, he was bigger. He's arguably the best to ever play in the NBA. And so you would think that a guy that was that star would recognize his team needs that star. And maybe he thinks he's got that. Maybe he thinks he can land that in free agency. I don't know. Antoine Jameson is a nice professional basketball player. He's not necessarily a star anymore. He was a star in college, and he's been a very good pro in his entire NBA career. He contributes, and he does a lot of great things, and I'm not knocking the guy in any way, shape, or form. But when you talk stars in the NBA, you talk guys like LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Kevin Durant, those types of players. And it's Michael's job to try to lure some of those names, some of that talent, into Charlotte as free agents. Now, they've got to be available. I get that. But this is a team that lacks star power. They've got to find the guy to come in and be their guy. And that's one of the tricky things that the Bobcats have to deal with at this point. You'll also notice I'm wearing the Indian head, the Chicago Blackhawks. So the NHL is in its off season. CBA talks going on. They say they're talking. How good the talks are at this point, we don't know. But the fact that they're talking and it's July and the current CBA expires on September the 15th, if they're having civil discussions, that's a good sign. Frankly, I'm tired of talking about labor struggles in sports because we've dealt with it now already in the last 2 years with the NFL and the NBA. If the NHL has learned nothing from their struggles, then shame on them. But this is something that they have had plenty of time to talk about, plenty of time to work through. I don't necessarily like the fact that Don Fear is the player's rep. I don't believe he's the right guy. Sure, he knows the business side of things, but you got to know the game a little bit too. And I'm not sure that Don Fear knows the game of hockey as well as he needs to. Then again, maybe it won't matter. So I just hope that both sides get to the table, they get an agreement in place. They just the salary cap is established for next year, which could change with a new CBA. I learned a long time ago to try not to pick a side in these things because the owners have their interests, the players have their interests. The players' window is a lot smaller to have a career than an owner's window is to own a franchise. So it's easy to side with the players, but it's also easy to side with the owners because the owners are the ones that are taking the risk. They're the ones that are putting their name and their money on a franchise and on the responsibility of selling the tickets and on the responsibility of filling the building and everything else. But the players share just as much risk because they put their bodies in jeopardy and their lives in jeopardy. Let's face it. It doesn't take much. It wouldn't take much. I hate to use the name Travis Roy, but the kid played at Boston College and finally made it to the varsity team. And on his first shift in Boston, was it Boston College or BU? Regardless, it wasn't BC. It was BU. And the first 10 seconds of his collegiate career, he suffers a freak accident and he's paralyzed. Players assume risks. They do. And it doesn't matter if it's football, basketball, baseball, hockey. Any player that steps between the lines is taking a risk. It's taking a risk. Baseball player can get hit in the head with a fast pitch. Boom. Fastball to the head and there's damage. Basketball players, knee injuries, head injuries from hitting the floor. Hockey players talked about it. Football players. There's a wide range of injuries. These guys take risks, and so it's easy to side one way or the other. Personally, I'd like to just see the NHL get a deal done, amicable to everybody, and move forward into next season and see if the LA Kings can defend as Stanley Cup champs. If I get anything else to drift into the brain, we'll try this again. I hope I didn't ruin 13 minutes of your life. But we'll see you tonight on the Ford Sports Night at 10 o'clock. And coming up this week, before we move on, Bob Pockris from Sporting News, NASCAR rider extraordinaire, will be joining us on the Ford Sports Night. We'll also talk football with Darren Gant from Pro Football Talk. Or Pro Football, one of those three, Pro Football Talk or Pro Football Weekly. I'll figure it out before then. He'll be on Friday, and I'll talk with him. But he's new to that beat. And we're glad to have him as a friend of the program. And so that's going to do it for this first video blog. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll talk at you a little later.